Jake Thompson was a 32-year-old entrepreneur, the proud owner of a growing tech startup in the bustling city of Seattle. With tousled brown hair and deep-set blue eyes that reflected both determination and wariness, he had worked tirelessly to build his company from the ground up. Jake was known among his peers as a dedicated, sometimes obsessive, workaholic. His friends often joked that his laptop was his true love. He had met Emily during college, and they had fallen in love over late-night study sessions and shared dreams of the future. Jake was drawn to her infectious laughter and the way her hazel eyes sparkled with ambition and creativity. Emily, now 30, had a background in graphic design and had recently transitioned into a managerial role at a marketing firm. Their life together had seemed perfect, painted with the strokes of shared dreams, buying a house, traveling the world, and eventually starting a family. However, in recent months, the warmth that once defined their relationship had begun to fade. Jake's commitment to his business had inadvertently created a rift between them. He had spent countless late nights at the office while Emily felt increasingly alone. Her attempts to connect with him met with indifference. The emotional distance grew as Jake poured every ounce of energy into his work, often neglecting the very foundation of his personal life. It was on a chilly November evening that Emily burst through the door, a bundle of energy wrapped in a coat, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Jake had been slumped on the couch, his laptop open and staring blankly at spreadsheets. He looked up, his heart pounding at the sight of her beating face. "Jake, you won't believe this," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with a mix of joy and disbelief. She held out a small white stick, a pregnancy test, and Jake's heart raced. The words "pregnant" printed in bold letters seemed to echo in his mind. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she continued, "I'm going to be a mom. We're going to have a baby." In that moment, the world around them faded, and for a brief second, all seemed right. The thoughts of their struggles dissipated, replaced by dreams of cradling their child, of family gatherings filled with laughter and love. Yet beneath the surface of her joyful announcement, a knot tightened in Jake's stomach. Something felt off, an instinctual warning that refused to quiet. In the back of his mind, doubt crept in, whispering that this wasn't the news he had been waiting for. He had sensed the distance in their relationship, the late nights Emily spent alone, and the quiet phone calls she received when he was at work. As he looked into her teary hazel eyes, he couldn't shake the feeling that this revelation was merely a facade hiding deeper truths. Determined to rekindle their connection, Jake decided to surprise Emily with a weekend getaway, hoping to escape the daily grind and reconnect as a couple. He envisioned a cozy cabin in the woods where they could forget about their worries, breathe fresh air, and dream together. Jake spent the next hour organizing the trip, booking a beautiful cabin in the Cascade Mountains. However, as he glanced at Emily's phone, he caught sight of a message that sent chills down his spine. The name displayed on the screen was Mike. Mike Johnson, Jake's best friend since childhood, had been a constant presence in their lives. The two had forged a bond through shared experiences, sports, late-night talks, and entrepreneurial aspirations. Mike was charismatic and charming, with a mischievous grin that could light up a room. At 33, he was also navigating his own relationship, married to Sarah, a warm and nurturing woman who worked as a nurse. Together, they had appeared to have the perfect marriage, filled with shared adventures and a deep bond. However, as Jake stood there, staring at the screen, he felt a gut instinct that something was terribly wrong. Pushing the feeling aside, he turned his focus back to Emily, who was still jumping with excitement about the baby. As they chatted about their future, Jake couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding looming over them. The image of Mike lingered in his mind, and with every passing moment, his unease deepened. Something inside him whispered that this wasn't just a happy coincidence. There was more to the story. Later that evening, after a simple dinner filled with laughter, Jake excused himself to grab a drink from the kitchen. As he poured himself a glass of water, his heart raced with uncertainty. He glanced back at Emily, who was scrolling through her phone, her face illuminated by the screen. Something compelled him to take a closer look, and as he approached, he caught a glimpse of a video playing. It was just a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity as he watched the screen. The unmistakable image of Emily entwined with Mike sent shockwaves through his body. It was a moment of intimacy, a betrayal that shattered everything he thought he knew about the woman he loved. Anger and heartbreak clashed within him, swirling into a tempest of emotion that left him breathless. Jake felt a fire ignite within him, fueled by betrayal and disbelief. The laughter that had filled their home moments before now felt hollow. He stood frozen, heart pounding in his chest as Emily looked up, her smile fading when she saw his face. "Jake, what's wrong?" she asked, confusion replacing her earlier joy. His mind raced as he tried to process what he had just seen. The perfect life they had built, the dreams they had shared. Now they all seemed like a cruel joke. He took a deep breath, preparing to confront the woman he thought he knew. A mix of anger and pain etched across his features. "Emily, we need to talk," he said, his voice steady but cold. He He motioned for her to follow him into the living room, his heart pounding in his chest as he fought to maintain his composure. She followed, her brow furrowed in concern, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Once in the living room, Jake held his phone out, the video still playing, though it felt like a lifetime ago. "What is this, Emily?" he demanded, the betrayal pouring out of him like a flood. "How could you do this to us?" Emily's face paled, and for a moment, she was speechless, her eyes darting back and forth as if searching for a way out of the situation. "Jake, I can explain," she stammered, tears pooling in her eyes. "No, you don't get to explain," Jake interrupted, his voice rising. "You've been cheating on me with Mike, my best friend. How could you? After everything we've been through together." The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. Emily's defense crumbled as she dropped her gaze, unable to meet his eyes. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered, her voice trembling. It just happened. I felt so alone, Jake. You were always working, and I needed someone to talk to, someone who understood me." Jake's heart broke further as he listened to her excuses. "You thought sleeping with Mike would fill that void? He was my best friend. You could have come to me, Emily. You could have told me how you felt." The tension in the room hung heavy, a palpable weight that threatened to suffocate them both. Emily's tears fell freely now, but Jake felt no sympathy, only rage. He had dedicated himself to her, to their future, and she had thrown it all away for a moment of weakness. "I can't believe you," he said, shaking his head. "You need to leave. I can't look at you right now." He felt the heat of betrayal coursing through his veins, a whirlwind of emotions threatening to consume him whole. Emily's expression shifted from despair to disbelief. "You can't be serious. I'm pregnant. This is our baby," she cried, her voice rising in desperation. Jake paused, the weight of her words crashing over him like a wave. The news of her pregnancy, once a beacon of hope, now felt like a cruel twist in this story of betrayal. "I need some time to think," he muttered, feeling lost in a fog of confusion and pain. He moved past her, unable to endure the sight of her any longer. As he walked toward the bedroom, he felt the walls closing in on him. How had it come to this? The woman he had planned to spend the rest of his life with had shattered his world in an instant. He could hear Emily sobbing behind him, her cries echoing in the silence of their home, a home that no longer felt like a sanctuary. As he lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, he realized that the perfect facade they had built was crumbling, revealing a darkness he had never expected to face. The dawn of a new reality began to break. The future he had envisioned with Emily now lay in ruins, but deep down, he knew he had to take control of his life. Anger surged within him, fueling his resolve to confront the betrayal head-on. He would not let this destroy him. With that thought, he drifted into a restless sleep, haunted by dreams of a life that felt increasingly out of reach. The sun rose reluctantly over Seattle the next morning, casting a muted light through the curtains of Jake's bedroom. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the events of the previous night swirling in his mind like a storm. Anger and heartbreak intertwined, making it difficult to separate one emotion from the other. Emily's tear-streaked face haunted him, but beneath that pain lay the aching realization that their once bright future was now obscured by shadows of betrayal. Jake's phone buzzed on the nightstand, breaking the silence and pulling him from his thoughts. He reached for it, hoping for a distraction, but the notifications from social media and missed calls from friends only deepened his sense of isolation. He felt as if the entire world was moving on while he remained stuck in a moment of anguish. A message from Mike flashed across the screen and Jake's heart sank. "Mike? Hey, man. Can we talk? I heard about Emily. I'm so sorry." Jake's hands trembled as he read the message. How dare he reach out to him? Mike had betrayed him in the worst way, yet here he was playing the role of the concerned friend. Jake's anger flared and he quickly deleted the message without responding. He didn't want to talk to Mike, he didn't want to talk to anyone. All he wanted was to process what had happened and figure out his next steps. With a heavy sigh, Jake rolled out of bed and dressed in the same clothes he had worn the day before. He felt a strange sense of numbness as he moved through the familiar motions of his morning routine, brushing his teeth and washing his face without truly registering his reflection in the mirror. The man staring back at him was a stranger, lost, heartbroken, and betrayed. As he made his way to the kitchen, the smell of coffee brewed by Emily reached him, a reminder of the normalcy they had once shared. The sight of her standing there, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, twisted his heart. She looked fragile, yet there was an undeniable resilience in her stance. Jake didn't know how to face her. He found himself hesitating in the doorway. "Jake," Emily said softly, breaking the silence. She turned to him, her hazel eyes red and puffy from crying. "I'm so sorry for everything. I know I hurt you, but we need to talk." Jake felt a rush of emotions threatening to overwhelm him, and he clenched his fists to regain control. "Talk? About what? About how you betrayed me with Mike?" He could hear the sharpness in his own voice, the hurt laced within each word. Emily took a deep breath, her shoulders sagging as if carrying an unbearable weight. I know I messed up. I should have never turned to Mike. I thought you were distant, that you didn't love me anymore. I was lonely, and I made a terrible mistake. Terrible doesn't even begin to cover it, Emily. Jake snapped, his anger flaring anew. You didn't just make a mistake, you made a choice. You chose to sleep with my best friend. I know, she cried, tears streaming down her face once more. I didn't think it would go that far. I thought I could find comfort. But I love you, Jake. I didn't want to lose you. Jake felt a conflicting mix of emotions stirring within him. He wanted to believe her, to grasp onto any glimmer of hope that they could salvage their relationship, but the betrayal was a deep wound that could not easily heal. How can I trust you again? He asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. How can I believe that you're not going to run back to him the moment things get tough? Emily stepped closer, her hands trembling as she reached for him. Please just give me a chance. I want to make this work. I want our baby to have a family, to have us together. I'll do anything. Jake looked into her eyes, searching for sincerity, for a hint of the woman he had fallen in love with years ago. But all he found was a mixture of fear and desperation. He took a step back, needing space to think. You need to leave, Emily. I can't do this right now. The air between them thickened with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. What do you mean? She asked, panic creeping into her voice. You want me to leave? Where would I go? I don't know, Jake replied, feeling his heart harden. Maybe you can stay with Mike. He seems to have a better grasp of your needs. Emily recoiled as if he had struck her. Jake, please don't say that. I made a mistake, but I still love you. I need you to believe that. Love isn't enough anymore, he said, the finality of his words hanging heavy in the air. You've shattered my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get it back. With that, he walked past her into the living room, his heart pounding as he struggled to regain his composure. He felt a rush of conflicting emotions, sadness, anger, betrayal, and a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, he could find a way forward. But for now, all he could feel was the weight of his decision pressing down on him. As the day dragged on, Jake busied himself with work, trying to drown out the chaos in his mind. He dove into emails and meetings, attempting to lose himself in the responsibilities of running his business. But even as he worked, thoughts of Emily lingered, each memory a painful reminder of what they had once shared. Around midday, he received a call from Sarah, Mike's wife. A sense of dread washed over him as he answered. Jake, I heard about what happened with Emily. I just wanted to check on you, she said, her voice laced with concern. I appreciate it, Sarah, but I'm not really in the mood to talk, Jake replied, his tone brusque. Jake, I know this must be incredibly hard for you, but I want you to know I'm here for you. I'll always have your back, she said, genuine sympathy echoing through the phone. I know, but right now I just need some space, he said, feeling overwhelmed. I can't talk about this. Okay, but I want you to know you're not alone in this, she insisted, her voice softening. I'll be here when you're ready to talk. After hanging up, Jake felt a mix of gratitude and frustration. Sarah had always been a source of strength, but her kindness only served to highlight the betrayal he had suffered. He knew he needed to confront Mike, but part of him hesitated. What if Mike tried to manipulate the situation further? As evening approached, Emily returned from her mother's house, her eyes puffy and red. She looked defeated, and Jake's heart ached at the sight. They stood in the living room in silence, the tension palpable. Finally, Emily broke the quiet, her voice trembling. I don't want to leave like this, Jake. We need to talk about our future, about the baby. I don't know what future we have anymore, Emily, he replied, frustration bubbling to the surface. You've destroyed our foundation. How can we build anything new when the old has been broken? I'm willing to fight for us, she insisted, stepping closer again. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I'll go to therapy, whatever you need. Just don't give up on us. Jake met her gaze, his heart wavering as he considered her words. You want to fight for us, but you need to understand that trust isn't built overnight. It takes time, and right now, I don't know if I can offer you that. Please just give me a chance, she pleaded. I can't imagine raising this baby without you by my side. Jake felt torn. He wanted to believe her, wanted to see the hope in her eyes, but the wounds were still fresh. You need to figure things out, Emily. I can't be your crutch while you sort out your feelings for Mike and me. Emily's face fell, the weight of his words crashing down around her. What are you saying? You're saying you want me to leave? I don't know, he said, frustration rising within him. Maybe we need some time apart to figure out what we really want. I don't want to lose you, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks again. I'll fight for you, I swear. Just don't push me away. Jake felt the intensity of her emotions, and despite his anger, a part of him ached for her. The woman he had loved, the woman he had planned a future with, stood before him, desperate and vulnerable. Yet he knew he couldn't let his emotions cloud his judgment. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. I can't make promises right now, Emily. I need space to think. You need to stay with your parents for a while. It's for the best." Emily looked as if he had slapped her. "Jake, please, don't do this. I can't go through this alone. I need you." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to cheat," he shot back, his anger bubbling over. Days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere in Jake's home became suffocating. Emily had moved back to her parents' house, and he could hardly remember a time when the silence felt so heavy. The once vibrant conversations and shared laughter were replaced by a deep sense of loneliness that clung to him like a shadow. Each morning, Jake would wake up, feeling the absence of Emily beside him, a stark reminder of the life they once shared. His work provided a distraction, but even that felt hollow. He poured himself into his business, pushing himself harder than ever. Meetings came and went, but the passion he once felt for his work had dulled. As his company thrived, his personal life crumbled. He missed Emily, her laughter, her warmth, the way she always knew how to lift his spirits. But he also felt a fierce sense of betrayal, a constant reminder of the woman who had hurt him deeply. One evening, after a long day at the office, Jake sat on the couch, the glow of the television flickering in the dim light. He scrolled through his phone, aimlessly browsing social media, when he stumbled upon a picture of Mike and Sarah at a dinner party. They were laughing, carefree, and for a moment, a wave of anger washed over him. The image of Mike's smug smile ignited the fury that had been simmering beneath the surface. "How could he?" Jake muttered under his breath, his fists clenching in frustration. "How could he betray me like this?" He tossed the phone aside, unable to shake the feeling of betrayal. As he leaned back on the couch, he remembered the last conversation he had with Emily. The way she had pleaded for him to stay, the desperation in her voice, it haunted him. Part of him wanted to reach out to her to see how she was doing, but pride and hurt held him back. Later that night, Jake decided to go for a walk to clear his mind. The cool evening air felt refreshing against his skin as he wandered the quiet streets of Seattle. He found himself near a park where he and Emily used to spend lazy afternoons, lying on the grass and talking about their dreams. The memories flooded back, and he felt a pang of nostalgia mixed with longing. As he strolled through the park, he spotted a couple sitting on a bench, sharing a moment of laughter. It was a simple scene, yet it struck a chord deep within him. He missed that connection, the effortless joy of being with someone who understood him. But then, the thought of Emily's betrayal loomed large in his mind, and he turned to leave, not wanting to confront the bittersweet memories. The following morning, Jake received a message from Sarah. "Sarah, hey Jake, can we meet up? I think it's time we had a serious conversation." Jake's stomach twisted at the thought of facing her. He had avoided contact with both Sarah and Mike since the incident, but he knew that ignoring her message would only prolong the inevitable. He typed a quick reply, agreeing to meet for coffee later that afternoon. As he prepared for the meeting, Jake's mind raced with possibilities. What could Sarah want to discuss? Would she defend Mike, or would she acknowledge the chaos that had unfolded? A sense of dread settled in the pit of his stomach as he arrived at the cafe they had chosen. Sarah was already there when he arrived, her expression serious yet compassionate. She greeted him with a warm smile, but the tension in the air was palpable. They settled into a booth, and Jake took a moment to collect his thoughts before she spoke. "Jake, I wanted to talk about what happened," she said softly. "I can't imagine how hurt you must be, and I'm truly sorry for everything." "I appreciate that, Sarah, but it doesn't change what happened," Jake replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "Emily and Mike's betrayal shattered everything." "I know," Sarah nodded, her eyes reflecting empathy. "But I think you deserve to hear what I have to say. Mike has been struggling, and I don't think he realizes the damage he's caused." Jake clenched his jaw, feeling the heat of anger rise within him. "Struggling? He ruined my life. How could he not know what he was doing?" "I'm not defending him," she said quickly. "But I want you to understand that he didn't think it would go this far. He thought it was harmless, that it was just flirting. He didn't realize how deeply it would affect you until it was too late." Jake's heart raced as he listened to Sarah. He could hear the sincerity in her voice, but it didn't lessen the pain he felt. "And Emily, where does she fit into all of this?" Sarah hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Emily feels awful about everything. She regrets hurting you, and she's been trying to find a way to make things right. She wants to be a good mother to your child. Does she?" Jake scoffed, anger bubbling within him, because it didn't seem like that when she was with Mike. "Jake, I can't change the past, and neither can she. But I do think you need to give her a chance to explain herself. You need to decide what you really want," Sarah said gently. Jake looked away, his mind racing. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Could he really consider forgiving Emily? Could he ever trust her again? "Maybe I should just cut my losses and move on," he said, the bitterness creeping into his voice. "Why should I give her a second chance?" "Because you've had a child together," Sarah replied, her tone firm yet compassionate. And because deep down, I think you still care about her. This baby deserves a chance at a family, even if it means working through the pain. Jake felt a mix of frustration and confusion. The thought of raising a child with Emily was both terrifying and heartwarming. He envisioned a future filled with laughter and love, yet the thought of Emily's betrayal loomed large in his mind. "Let me think about it," he said finally, his voice weary. "I just need some time." Sarah nodded, understanding the turmoil he was facing. "Take your time, Jake. Just know that I'm here for you, no matter what you decide." After their meeting, Jake returned home, feeling the weight of the conversation hanging over him. He thought of Emily, of their baby, and the choices he had to make. As he lay in bed that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was at a crossroads, and every path before him was filled with uncertainty. Over the next few days, Jake reflected on Sarah's words. He wrestled with his emotions, finding himself oscillating between anger and longing. He missed Emily, and despite everything, he still loved her. But could he truly forgive her? Finally, after a long night of restless sleep, Jake made a decision. He reached for his phone and typed a message to Emily. "Jake, can we meet? I think we need to talk." He hit send, his heart racing as he awaited her response. A few moments later, his phone buzzed. "Emily, yes, I'll be there." "Thank you." The anticipation of their meeting filled Jake with a mix of anxiety and hope. He wanted to see her and hear her voice, and to understand her side of the story. When Emily arrived, Jake felt a rush of emotions flooding through him. She looked nervous, her hands trembling as she fidgeted with her hair. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's just get this over with," Jake replied, trying to keep his tone neutral. He led her to the living room, and they sat on opposite ends of the couch, the distance between them feeling like a chasm. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," Emily began, her eyes filling with tears. "I know I messed up, and I can't express how sorry I am. I never meant to hurt you, Jake. You have to believe that." "I want to believe it, but it's hard," Jake said, his voice strained. "You made a choice to be with Mike. You could have come to me." "I was scared," Emily confessed, her voice breaking. "I thought you were pulling away from me. I felt so alone. I thought I could find comfort with Mike, but it was a mistake. I regret it every day." Jake's heart ached at her words. He could see the pain in her eyes, the remorse etched on her face. But still, doubt lingered in the back of his mind. What if this happens again? What if you run to him again when things get tough? Emily shook her head vigorously, her expression desperate. "I promise it won't. I've realized how much you mean to me, how much I need you. I want us to be a family. I want to raise our baby together." He could feel the sincerity in her words, but the fear of being hurt again gripped him tightly. "I don't know if I can just forget everything," he admitted, his voice wavering. "I'm not asking you to forget," she said softly. "I'm asking for a chance to prove to you that I can be the wife and mother you deserve. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back."